Okay, so how do you tie the VT? The VT is, in French, it's Valdotain Tresse, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, but most people call it VT for a reason. It's much simpler. But before I show you how to tie this, we need to talk about what we're using, what material we're using to tie it with. And this is a hitch cord right here. It's a sewn eye to eye. It's 32 inches long. But what's most important about this is the material this is made of. And what it's made out of is a Technora sheath with aramid fibers and polyester. Okay. Now, the reason that's important is because the hitch is meant to slide along a rope. When you slide a hitch like that, it's going to create a lot of heat, and we don't want this melting. Okay, this is what's holding you and keeping you from plummeting to your death, right? So you want to make sure this is not going to melt. So make sure before you do any kind of hitches like this, you use the right material. Okay, and if you want to know where to get this, just go to any arborist supply house and they'll have them. Okay, and you can also buy just hitch cord and tie your own knots on the end. But these are nice because they're sewn and they're really simple. Okay, anyway, I just wanted to say that before we start tying this knot. Make sure you have the right material. All right, to tie it, fairly simple. That's why it's so popular. I go about a third to the left and I start making wraps. Okay, I want to make 4 wraps. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the next important step is to drop this top strand down, and this lower strand is going to go over the top of that. Okay, and if anybody's going to make a mistake, that's probably where it's going to happen. But and it's not the end of the world if you did it wrong, but this is much more efficient. Okay, so you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Your top strand's coming down. Your bottom strand is going to cover that. Now, as we go downward with the wraps, we're going to be doing crossovers. So as this strand is on top, when it goes to the back side, it's going to be on the bottom. That's going to go on top. Okay, and then switch them up just like that until you get to the end. Now, the beauty of hitches, basically this is the knot, or the hitch I should say, but the beauty of hitches is you can experiment. If you don't like having 4 wraps up here, you maybe do 5, maybe do 3. But always test your system out before you ever, are up high. Okay. All right. So to finish this, really simple. Put a carabiner in that. Okay. So now that is a VT. And the beauty of a VT hitch is you can slide it up the rope, and as soon as you put weight on it, it's going to grab. Okay. And when you put real weight on it, your body weight, it's going to extend. Now, the only disadvantage of hitches is the slack. So if you're climbing a rope and you go up and you do the sit-stand method, when you sit down, you're going to be dropping, 3-4 inches. So just be prepared for that. But it's a great system. And that's it in a nutshell. Now there's one more thing you can do to make things even more efficient, is to put a hitch climber pulley in the system. Okay, a hitch climber pulley is nothing more than a specialty pulley made for arborists that goes below the hitch. Okay, we'll take this off. And what you want to do is put your pulley in there capture your last hole and then capture your other strand, okay? So you'll end up with this right here. And what that allows you to do is, instead of physically having to push this hitch up as you climb, you just grab your tail and the pulley advances it for you, okay? And it's just a much more efficient system, especially with a double rope system, which I'll show here in a minute. But that's it. That is a VT hitch. It's a great little hitch to know. It's very handy. Okay, so the first great use of a VT is what it was meant for, and that is using it in a double rope climbing configuration. Okay, so here's your VT. We have our hitch climber pulley in here for efficiency, and basically the rope goes through this pulley up here, but imagine this is over a tree branch or something like that, and we want to climb this tree, and then it's terminated back into the pulley with a scaffold nut. Okay, wonderful hitch for this. So if I were to use this, I would clip in to my central point, and if I wanted to climb, basically I would grab this strand here and I would pull, and as I'm pulling down, I'm taking slack up, just like that. Okay, now this anchor is not rated for me. It's just a standard leg eye bolt up there, so I'm not going to climb too high and risk falling on this concrete, but you get the concept. Okay, and to go down, you would just simply push down on the 4 strands up here and then let go. When you let go, that's going to hold you. Okay, and to climb, we're just going to keep doing that until we get to where we want to be. Okay, so that is the VT hitch in a double rope climbing configuration. And let's take some of this, get back on my feet here. Okay, great use for this. Okay, along those same lines, I can create a 2-point system using my VT as a really long lanyard, basically. So imagine this is my central point on the orange, and I want to be able to basically have 2 points of contact to make myself stable. Okay, so I would take and we're going to imagine that this, say we're up in a tree or we're on a building or what have you, and this rope is wrapped around a limb or a feature on a building. Okay, so we can take this system here, clip it into a secondary point on our harness. Okay, so when we lean back, and I've weighted both of these systems at the same time, and I've had the benefit of standing either against a building or the tree. I am dead stable at this point. Okay, now it frees my hands up to either perform a rescue or perform tree work or what have you. Okay, now, and it's easily adjustable. So if I'm going down the building and my victim is over here, I can move that way simply by giving myself more slack here. Okay, and then I can take up slack here. Okay, at this point I'm dead solid. So that's another feature of the VT hitch, is it does wonderfully as a very long lanyard, basically. Okay. Okay, advantage number 2. We can tie a VT on a tight line. Now imagine this rope is tight for a reason. There's a person on the other end. They've either fallen from rock climbing, or they've, maybe descending, rappelling, and they've gotten stuck, and we need to get down to them. And we don't have the advantage of being able to raise this up and put a descender on this. And even if you did, you wouldn't go very far anyway, because the descender would lock up. Okay, but we can down climb this rope, and a VT hitch is a great way of doing that. So again, we're just going to tie our VT on here, so that and even though this rope is very tight at the moment, we can still use it. Okay, so we would use this, and if we didn't have a secondary rope and we needed to access our patient or a victim. Okay, so here you go. Now imagine having at least 2 of these, one as a backup in case one were to fail. You don't want to trust just one to your life, but you can go ahead and easily down climb to your victim and take care of that problem. All right, so advantage number 2 is being able to tie onto a tight line and actually either go up or down this rope. And here's a third version of the VT in action. Okay, and in this configuration, I'm using it as a third hand. Okay, so imagine I'm rappelling on the orange line. I'm going through a Sport 8, and my VT is my backup. Okay, and as I rappel, I can use the VT either strictly as a self-belay and keep it open, okay, or I can use the added friction of this in addition to the 8 to slow me down. But its main purpose is if something happens to you, you get hit in the head with a rock or whatever, and you were to just let go for whatever reason, this VT is going to catch you, keep you from falling. Okay, so that is a good example of a VT used as a third hand. Okay, in my last example of the VT in action, again, is going to be as a third hand. But this time, I'm mixing it up a little bit. And imagine I'm using this scarab to lower a victim or a patient down to where that person needs to go. Okay, so we have a live load on this. And I don't want to lose control of this. Okay, and a good way to back this up is to have another attendant. So you have your primary rescuer lowering right here. Okay, so if I do this, but if for some reason he were to lose control, we have a backup. And if we go back here to another anchor, we would have a second attendant monitoring this VT. Okay, so. And of course, he would keep a little bit more slack out of this. Let me take some of that out. Okay, so if the first rescuer were to drop it, this VT is going to catch. Okay, so if we have a real person on this system, we don't ever want to lose control of the system. Okay, so here's another example of a third hand as a backup to your primary system. And then, you know, let's say this were to get tensioned accidentally, we can always push down on these, and then we can go ahead and get slack in the system again. Okay, so another good example of the VT as a backup. Okay, hope all this helps, and learn the VT. And once you learn the VT, learn other hitches, and they're very, very useful and very important. See you on the next one.